It's talked about in boardrooms in the most successful companies, how business results are linked to employee engagement driven by inspiring leadership. So let's talk leadership. I'm Bill Hogg, and in this series I talk in depth with corporate leaders about the tools and techniques they are using to build a high-performing business in today's economy. With me today is Marcia Mayhew, president of Mayhew Associates. Before we begin our discussion, let's get an overview of the company. Mayhew has 150 employees and is headquartered in Markham with offices in Kitchener, Windsor, and Stony Creek. Synonymous with space and interior design ingenuity, Mayhew has designed award-winning spaces and has a knowledgeable team of experts to help clients create workspaces designed for current and future requirements. These workplace solutions reflect and encourage an organization's business and social culture, but also increase productivity. Mayhew is recognized as one of Canada's 50 best managed companies and has a mission to create and maintain workplaces that work. Mayhew has designed over 22 million square feet of space, successfully moved 300,000 people, and supplied and installed over 100,000 workstations. For more information on this company, visit mayhew.ca. Now, following in the footsteps of her great-grandmother, at age 30, Marcia Mayhew was appointed president of Mayhew Associates, making her the fourth generation responsible for leading the company. Under her leadership, Mayhew Associates was awarded and recognized as one of the top 50 organizations and the 50 most engaged workplaces. So let's get started. Marcia, what was it like walking into an organization as the fourth generation and being appointed president when in fact there were probably senior people within that organization that may have wondered where are you coming from? How did you deal with that?
Well, I admitted openly to the team that I'm in there. I don't know what I don't know, and I spent the first 2 years as a leader understanding the business, understanding really the culture that my parents, Mark and Christine, built, and understanding what the values were. And what the values were that they started the organization with, and what was going to take us to the future.
So when you started, did you come in as president, or did you just come in as being sort of identified as the heir apparent?
When I started with Mayhew, I was in marketing and communications. And I was in marketing and communications for 5 years before I took the role as president CEO.
So you had the opportunity to sort of earn some credibility with the team before taking that step.
Absolutely. So what I did was build a few marketing programs, but I also took communications and looked at communications internally. To me, communications is everything. So I looked at human resource communications as well as external communications. And that is really where I got to know the benefits of the values that this company has.
So let's talk about the values, because I mean, I find that a lot of organizations, they've got the values up on their wall and they tend to point to them a lot. And I could be guessing on this, but I suspect that Mayhew has, clearly identified them, but then so did Enron. But we also know where Enron ended up. So tell me a little bit about how you approach the values.
It's really living the values. I mean, it's nice to have them on the wall, and it's nice to have them at the beginning of every job description, or at Mayhew, as we call them, maps. But it is ingraining them into the fabric of everything that you do. And the values should also be the basis for all decisions that are made. And that is something that at the start of every single executive team meeting, the values are made sure that they are clearly represented, as well as at the heart of every decision, we've made sure that it is aligned with what our values are. So number one, act with integrity. I mean, that's a very, everybody has that, but what really is that? Honest, trustworthy, sincere, respect. And so that is at the heart of everything. Number two, this is an interesting one. We are self-critical. We have to be able to understand where we've made a mistake and look at that and learn from that. Mm-hmm. Number three, intellectually curious. Well, I think that at the heart describes us as an organization as design thinkers. The roots of our success really is in creative problem solving and solving problems around space. So that really talks to our clients and to our people about what we do best. The other one, clients for keeps. That is ensuring whatever we do, and also at the heart of every decision, is it the right thing for the client? Because we want relationships. And the other one is we stand accountable. We have to stand accountable and understand, and in order to create that high performance culture, you have to measure and understand where we're going to measure our people on. And that's really something that we have driven hard to create, that performance-based culture, is building accountability into every single role that we have within Mayhew.
Excellent. So when I think it was your third one when you talked about creative thinking.
Yes.
How does that, influence the way you would describe what your organization stands for? I mean, to the outside observer, I could say, well, you develop furniture or you build workspaces, but how would you describe what your organization does?
Well, whether you're in finance or whether you are in human resources or you're in any part of our organization, what we do is really look at a need for constant improvement. So it's finding that unknown need or known need and coming up with a solution to that. So how can we always look for something different and something better? And that really is at the heart of our success, is design thinking and constantly looking at ways to improve.
So solution focused is really where your focus goes, as opposed to just delivering a product or a service.
Absolutely.
I find that's interesting. More and more organizations that I come across, they don't really understand the difference between what I'm going to call their purpose and their task. And I think that also has a big impact on the people within the organization. People tend to think of themselves as, well, I work in accounting, so therefore I do these things. Or
right.
I work in HR and I do these things. But in reality, I think what I'm hearing from you is that we all work together and we certainly perform our tasks, but we really have a higher purpose.
Absolutely. And also, I think the great thing about that value is that we're constantly wanting to improve and develop our talent. And we live by that. Creating a culture where performance is looked at not only in what you're doing in your everyday task, but also what you're doing to learn more and to diversify your skill set.
So how do you support that kind of a culture within your organization? I mean, that's a pretty high bar to set.
Number one is we have something called Mayhew University. Mayhew University is a program that we've established, and there's 16 courses in all. They're held at least every 3 weeks. And they are courses that can be used towards different CEUs. So depending if you're a designer and you need CEUs, or you are an accountant, a CMA, and you need CEUs, the courses that we hold are to help you develop your skills and to grow and advance within the company or within your future career. So we have courses like that. We also reimburse education, and we put development plans in place for every single one of our employees. So instead of a traditional performance appraisal system, what we have adopted is more of a catalytic coaching. So where the onus is put really on the employee to let us know where you want to develop, where you see your skill sets growing. And that's what has really turned this organization around and become a creative learning environment, is because we have adopted this coaching program, which also involves mentoring.
So how long has the coaching program been in the organization?
It has been in the organization now for 3 years.
So would I be safe in saying that that is one of your initiatives?
Yes.
So with all due respect to your parents, who I'm sure ran an excellent organization, tell me about some of the things that you sort of, when you came in the organization, you took over the reins, what were some of the key things that you sort of set as your objectives?
Number one is everybody in the organization has to have a very good, solid understanding of our mission, our vision, our values. Hands down. Again, it is ingrained right into every job description, and it's how we reward our people, and it's also how you're measured.
Okay.
Number two, everybody has to have a map, what we call a Mayhew Associate plan. And that map really is a description, but it also puts performance expectations right into, and that's really what's started to develop this high performance team that we have. Then what we also have is open exchanges, which is our catalytic coaching. So we have self-assessments that are done, and then we are followed up by employee assessments. And then on top of that, we sit down and we map out what their professional development plan is for the year, whether that's through Mayhew University courses, for our managers or managers in training. We also have a membership with Fred Pryor, which allows our people to go out and learn skills such as dealing with difficult clients or negotiation skills.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So just expanding their knowledge, and so that's mapped out in their open exchange as well. And we have constant communication and evaluation as to how we're doing against our strategic initiatives. And as an organization, our strategic initiatives are also communicated to every single employee, and they can see how their role plays a part in us reaching what our initiatives are and really what our key result areas are.
So a number of the things that you've just talked about, frankly, a lot of organizations have those things in place.
Right.
You know, and they tend to be, you know, we have a list of things and we go tick, 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 and we've done them. But clearly, you've been able to bring those things to life. How do you actually get people to buy into, you know, the kind of initiatives you're putting in place?
It's about, it really has to start at the top, number one. You have to have a high performance team at the top. Whether you're going to, you can't have anything, you can't create a performance-based culture if you don't have one at the very top. So again, the high performance is trust, respect, leave your egos at the door, and learning how to deal with diverse thoughts and processes. And then that gets transpired into our overall culture. But we also have to reward and recognize our values as well as the attributes that we desire to build our culture. And really that's making sure that we have a recognition program that's mapped out in order to achieve the desired attributes that we're looking for.
Right. So I think probably the one thing that I find missing in so many organizations that you've really hit on here is that it's got to start from the top. I don't know how many times I've walked into organizations where they have all these things in place and they can't understand why it doesn't, you know, take bite into
Right.
the organization. So again, I go back to the situation that's kind of unique for you is that there were some people who might say, well, you know, she got the job because of who she is. I mean, what are some of the things that you personally did to really ensure that people saw that you were leading from the top as opposed to just sort of like writing things out that people needed to do?
I think the main thing is we started with engagement surveys, and you have to really understand what the people are thinking. And we had an engagement survey that was done that really took a pulse of the culture and identified areas that we needed to really beef up and enhance. And that really was around communication, and communication that the employees were getting from the executive team. And understanding what the roadblocks were as to why the messages weren't getting to the people.
Because I'm sure, like most executives, you thought, well, we've already told them this. Why aren't they hearing it?
Exactly, exactly. So what we really tried to do was we evaluated at the very top level that executive team. And we went in there to make sure we were all aligned and on the same page. We understood each other's roles. We had an understanding of what it is that we wanted to achieve. We had clearly defined measurements right at the top. We had accountability right at the top. And then once that is in place at the top, that will happen naturally throughout the entire organization. So we started with that. And then we communicated through action meetings, through regular tools such as newsletters, to the simple things as recognition points through our Mayhew Rewards system. Is
right.
What we did was give points out to people that recognized our values and to people that understood what our key result areas are and our initiatives.
Great. Well, we're going to pick up a little bit more on that after the break.